Open the border to Australia with no isolation period either way by the end of the year and save Air New Zealand jobs. That from National MP Todd McClay. Air New Zealand flight attendants fear 950 of them will be issued with redundancy notices next week. And they've written to MPs appealing for their help, halting the process until at least alert level 2, so proper face-to-face consultations can take place. Air New Zealand has said it will cut 30% of its workforce. That's even though it's received more than $70 million in wage subsidies. National Party spokesperson for tourism and workplace relations, Todd McClay, says the government needs to set a time frame for isolation-free travel to Australia, so Air New Zealand and other aviation industries can plan ahead and save jobs. I asked him exactly when he thinks the trans-Tasman border should open up.
When it comes to that trans-Tasman border, it's a very difficult one for me to make a call because I haven't got the information or advice the government has. But I think they need to set a time when they would like to do it. And if we continue to see both in New Zealand and Australia the virus track in the way that it has, I believe it must be possible by the end of this year. It could well be sooner. But I would like to see the government working very, very hard on the conditions by which the border could open again with Australia. There would need to be conditions around that, but it could open with Australia as soon as is feasibly possible, so that every single business that relies upon, that trade, that aviation, and people coming backwards and forwards can start planning for when they can get back to business as normal.
So that's of no use to people unless there is no quarantine period or isolation period at both ends. So when you say you anticipate that by the end of the year you'd like to see it possible, that means you would be anticipating that we would no longer have a need for isolation if we are flying to and from Australia by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right, and that's a signal the government needs to send, and they should be working towards. Over the last 5 or 6 weeks of lockdown, I hope we've had a lot of government officials working on exactly what level 2 will look like and how New Zealanders can be freed up to return to the economy and to their jobs. Every company that gets to open means jobs are saved, and it takes much more of the hard edge of the economic hit that New Zealand has faced as a result of a 5, almost 7-week lockdown. But you are right when it comes to trans-Tasman travel. It doesn't make sense if you have a 2-week stand down on either side. But at the moment, we've seen the infection rate similar between Australia and New Zealand per capita. We've seen the rates by which people are recovering the same. And although it's very sad, the mortality rates are very, very similar. So Australia is tracking like New Zealand. When we've had the Prime Minister say the virus is all but eradicated, if Australia is in a position to say the same thing and that the conditions are equal in the way that we are sort of treating New Zealanders with track and trace and so on both sides of the Tasman, it must be possible to open that border and make sure that track and trace is available and the other conditions that would be necessary around, people not being unwell and temperature and so on. What I'm asking for is the government to do this work and to send a very, very strong signal. Look, if Air New Zealand is aware that they could be flying the Tasman by the end of the year and the condition, then they're likely to look to keep more people on than the current redundancy process suggests. That's 3,700 Air New Zealand staff who work very hard that are likely to lose their job. I fear the number will be much, much higher than that unless the government starts engaging and talking more openly with Air New Zealand and other companies.
The employees, the flight attendants, say that they don't think it's fair that the redundancy consultation process is being carried out during alert level 4. They want it put on hold until we get to level 2. Is that a fair call?
Yes, I can see why they'd be very concerned and about this. Air New Zealand have, along with many other companies in New Zealand, been able to take the wage subsidy the government has provided for the 12 weeks. I would hope they're in discussion with the government about whether that needs to be extended or not. But ultimately, I can see how these workers are very concerned that as they've been working hard in lockdown, they're likely to face the loss.
So
are you
on their side, Todd? Sorry to interrupt. Are you on their side? They want your support. They want this process frozen until the country is in level 2. They say it's inappropriate to be discussing redundancies over a company live stream, and it is just not fair. Do you agree with them?
Well, I agree with them. It's not fair, and for the sake of another week to show good faith in part of this discussion, I think Air New Zealand should look to do that. I've written to Air New Zealand to ask for a meeting, a briefing, and it just made the case to them that it's very important that all Air New Zealand employees are treated fairly, and they see the process as fair and as robust. I will be talking to Air New Zealand directly, and will raise this on behalf of the many, many thousands of Air New Zealand employees who have been writing to National Party MPs.
So the wage subsidy, they're getting about $70 million. They've got a $900 million loan facility. Does that come with obligations in terms of trying to save jobs? Because it looks like they're going ahead with redundancies regardless.
Yes, the answer is it must do so. It's a thick end of $1 billion of taxpayer money to help out the national airline. It's important that we do that because they, along with almost every other business in New Zealand, have no revenue, and they will have no revenue for the foreseeable future. That's why I'm saying the government needs to engage with them and be very clear about the rules around level 2 and very clear with them about when they hope to have trans-Tasman border open and under the condition it might be open so that Air New Zealand can plan for that. But they've received the thick end of $1 billion of taxpayer money. Yes, I believe there are obligations to work as hard as they can to save every single job that they can, but they are another industry in New Zealand that has so little income at the moment.
That's National MP Todd McClay.